Here are the keywords for this unit. You need to make sure you have an understanding of all these different devices. In this unit, there is a fair bit of crossover between the different specification points. So be aware that when we study something, you're going to have to use that knowledge in the other parts. Now, this unit might seem fairly simple at first look, but actually there are some big links to industry. There are systems developers who create systems for companies. They'll have to take an initial idea from a company, design the system, but part of system design includes input and output devices, and choosing the correct devices will ensure that a system runs correctly. If you're more interested in systems developers, please use the links on this slide to find out about this job. Now, in this lesson, we're thinking about input devices in particular. We can think of an abstracted view of a computer system having an input and an output, and what happens in between are those processes, all the things that we've been looking at the CPU, software, and all those items in between. The input is any data that is going into a system. Quite often input devices are peripherals. Now, a peripheral is an item that is outside of the main computer system, and a peripheral inputs data into that computer system. That might be in the form of a basic device such as a mouse or a keyboard, but however it might come in other devices such as sensors. We know that there's a massive range of devices that might be used. In your exams, however, you're going to have to know a lot more detail than just the input devices. You should know most of these already. You're going to be considering how you would use input devices to solve different problems, a little bit like the job of a systems developer. In some situations, there might just be one solution, but there might be a hybrid solution, or a selection of different devices that might give you the correct solution. The most important thing for you to do is to be able to select and justify your reasoning. When we're considering input devices for a system, you need to think of these four different things. I'll put these in an acronym for you. CARS: the cost, the accuracy of the device, the reliability, and the speed. Now, as a human, we'd usually perform quite poorly on these four things when we're inputting data. It costs a lot of money to pay somebody, there might be mistakes, so that might cause issues with the reliability of the data, and it's going to take us much longer than a computer system. Think about when you go to a supermarket. If the cashier had to type in every single thing that you bought, that would take a significant amount of time. Because that takes time, it's going to cost us more, and they might make mistakes. There's going to be more chance of errors. So with a computer system, we usually use validation, and this is what devices and software are very good at, catching those errors. Sometimes if a human does have to input data, we'd use verification, and we've been doing this in programming. We might use things such as double entry. Think of this when you enter your password details on an online form. You might have to put your email address in twice, just so that they can check that is correct. And the first time you sign up, you put your password in twice, and you can't copy and paste those, just to make sure that is correct. So task number 1. This is an easy task where I want you to come up with a list of common input devices. These are things that you use every day. I want you to very quickly tell me what the purpose and the costs, pros and cons are of these devices. Now remember, an input device is just not a basic input device, but it can also include sensors. Systems make use of sensors in a range of different industries, including robotics, flight control systems, building control systems, but we find a lot of these sensors in everyday technology. Think of a flight control system when you're flying a plane. You're going to want to know about what the pressure is outside, and we can use a barometer to do this. We might use a GPS to track our position when we're flying. But there are also other sensors, such as our gyroscopes, our accelerometer to tell us how fast we're moving. We might have a temperature sensor, so we know how hot something is outside. Your next task is to either use Isaac Computer Science or one of the pages from the books that you've been provided with the title Other Forms of Input. I'm going to show you a few of these over the next few slides, but you're going to have to thinking about what the purpose is of them and real applications which might use these types of devices and why they would choose these devices. Some of the other form of inputs we can think of include barcode readers. Now, this might not just be a barcode reader that we see in a supermarket. I'm sure you've all seen them before. These are laser scanners which scan a product and tell the company what you've bought. Now, if you think about it, there's a lot more to that. They want to know exactly what you've bought, the cost of that, so they can add that to your total. But it is also linked to a database so that the supermarket know exactly what's been bought and they can order stock. There's a massive link to the input devices and their accuracy. Remember the cars that we talked about before, the cost of these and the accuracy and the reliability. But there are other types of barcode readers such as pen readers. There are quite a few camera-based readers as well. You can see the top image under camera-based readers is checking people's temperature. Within the coronavirus pandemic, this could potentially be looking at who's got coronavirus by looking at people's temperatures. There are also QR codes that sit in this topic, which would link to another document, and a lot of biometrics are based on camera-based readers, such as iris recognition, looking at your eyes and letting you into a signal. If you think of a lot of phones, a lot of them have a camera and camera entry nowadays using these camera-based input readers. The next form is an RFID tag. Now, you'll find these kind of things used quite a lot on clothes. They can be used for security, but they can also be used on lots of different products. And you're going to be looking into and researching these uses. So your next task is to make notes and do some research on these other forms of input. The ones I've just listed, I want you to tell me what are the actual technology being used. Research, how do they work? I want you to give me examples of their uses in real life, so where would you see them being used, and any advantages or disadvantages that they bring. There is an extension. There are numerous other forms of input techniques. Have a look, see if you can find any others, and how might these be used in the real world.